Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted the number 1 would be Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, number 2 would be The Little Mermaid, number 3 would be The Boogeyman, number 4 would be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and number 5 would be Fast X. And I got all 5 of my predictions right for this weekend. Normally, I will just predict, the movies to just go down a slot if it's just, 2 other ones coming in. But I wanted to make that prediction of Fast X and Guardians swapping because it seemed like it was heading in that direction. We've seen it happen at the box office before. It's not an unrealistic prediction, I feel. And now I have a perfect 5 out of 5 for my predictions right for this weekend. And if you got your predictions right, you're getting a shout out right now. Congratulations to everyone who did. Unless you didn't. In truth, at time of recording this, I have not checked the comments to get the screenshots. So there could be a reality where there's no fucking comments up on the screen right now. I'm pretty sure there will be. But what if there's not, then there's just this whole extra chunk of the video. I'm sorry. Anyways, let's go on to number 1, which was, of course, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. But this movie, man, you know what's so great is that when Into the Spider-Verse came out and people were praising it, people were saying it's amazing, it's the best animated film of the year, but it's maybe my favorite Spider-Man film. And it did pretty, it did modestly okay at the box office. It got a profit, but it wasn't like the biggest hit, especially compared to other comic book movies as well. But ever since that movie came out, the fan base has been growing. People talk it up a lot more. It won Best Animated Feature at the Oscars for that year. And ever since them making this movie, they're talking about how they're up in the game as far as the animation styles and everything with the story. And now we are seeing a huge explosion of having an opening weekend. The first movie opened with 35 million. They have upped it by 85. They have opened with $120 million this weekend, which is also a little bit over estimates having it as well. Like some people were like, oh, maybe like 90s, maybe upper 100, but now it's like 120. This movie is really catching people off guard, and that is fucking awesome. And you know what else is fucking cool about this? Sorry, not to swear so much, but you know what else is really cool is that if you look at the other Spider-Man films opening weekends, this is the 3rd highest grossing Spider-Man opening weekend, behind No Way Home's $260 million opening and Spider-Man 3's $151 million. This movie squeaked ahead of Homecoming by $3 million and the first Sam Raimi film by $6 million. It is the top 3 highest opening weekends for a Spider-Man film. Going from like maybe potentially the lowest opening weekend for the first Spider-Verse, and now it's, top 3. That's amazing. And it just goes to show you how many fans are really rallying behind this version of Spider-Man and seeing more of this. And especially considering how wonderful the critical acclaim is, and the word of mouth is surely fantastic. You gotta wonder, it's gonna hold over well. You know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine like a usual superhero film like, 60% drop on this one. I can't picture it. You know what I mean? We'll talk a little bit more about that when we do the predictions for next week, but I'm just so happy to see this, especially since, I adored this film. If you haven't seen it for some reason, go see it at once. It is definitely, worth the hype. It's amazing. Let's go over some more box office analysis. So for the domestic numbers, it has already outgrossed Morbius by $47 million. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. It still needs $70 million until it outgrosses the entire domestic run of Into the Spider-Verse, but I mean, shit, with an opening like this, and like I said, it's probably going to hold over very well. I think we'll be seeing that happening in no time, which is amazing. Worldwide, it is sitting at $208 million. So that is $46 million over the entire worldwide run of Morbius, which is awesome. Suck it, Jared Leto. And it still has a little ways to go until it gets to Into the Spider-Verse, which is $167 million. But what's really impressive about this, though, and this is just according to what Wikipedia has listed. A lot of people have been saying this on Twitter as well. The budget of this movie, and when we talk about Elemental a couple weeks from now, that Disney Pixar movies usually have like these big budgets, and it's all going to like trying to make the animation look more realistic, and all this shit. So their budgets are really big, 200 million and shit like that. And you see all these other superhero films as well in live action that sometimes don't even look all that great. Sometimes they look okay, sometimes they look visually ugly. There's too much CG and it's unpolished. The animators were clearly rushed, but those budgets are huge. This movie's budget, and you would think with people talking up how much, work and passion is being, put into this project, that it would be much higher. This budget is only $100 million, according to according to Wikipedia and a couple people that have been talking about this on the internet. $100 million, and this is like the most visually pleasing animated film. That's insane, you know? And if you look at this, the worldwide total already being at $208 million, they have already doubled that budget. That's, oh my gosh, that is wonderful. And I know usually with these big tentpole movies, we're like, we'll have to wait and see what it does next weekend. That's when the real interesting thing happens. But I don't even know, because I feel like this is the most interesting. This big explosion, bigger than the first movie's opening, and you know, the fact that you hear all this critical acclaim. We saw what happened with Guardians a couple weeks ago. It's just gonna hold. I have no doubt in my mind it is gonna hold over well, and if it doesn't, then I will eat my fucking shoe. But I genuinely am just so happy for this movie's success right now, and I can't wait for the next one. Oh my gosh, this is just so exciting. Number 2, let's move on. So last weekend, the 3-day weekend, because I don't cover the, extended, Memorial Day stuff on the show. The 3-day weekend was around $90 million. So this movie held over at about $40 million. So that's a little bit over, a half, like 50% drop. Kind of expected, most of these, remakes tend to do that. And I think also, so a lot of audiences are, loving the movie. If you look on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score is really high. But I think, there is a stigma surrounding these Disney remakes now. So there are some people who are just like, all right, I understand some people are enjoying it, but, what they're saying doesn't really necessarily persuade me to go see it, you know what I mean? Like, so word of mouth isn't as strong for this as it would be anything else similar to like other remakes, and especially going through that history as well. So this is, it's kind of expected. So yeah, it made $40 million this weekend, which adds to a domestic total of $186 million. So they have outgrossed the original film domestically by $75 million. They've outgrossed Maleficent, Mistress of Evil by $73 million, and now it needs $15 million until it outgrosses the Kenneth Branagh Cinderella remake. Worldwide, it is sitting at $326 million. So it has outgrossed the original film by $104 million. It's outgrossed Cruella by $101, and it's behind the Tim Burton Dumbo by $27 million. So we'll be seeing it at least outgross that in Cinderella next weekend. But I think it's slowly getting there, and I'm not sure where it's going to start to drop off really, but it still has a little bit of a ways to go until it doubles its $250 million budget, if that even is an accurate budget, for how bloated some of these Disney movies are. And it's not just animation, it's these live action ones as well that, also have a ton of CG, So yeah, it still has about $174 million to go until it can get to the doubling point. I'm pretty sure they were hoping for something a little bigger. Yeah, the domestically it's really killing it, but I think it's a shared kind of response that worldwide the numbers there are really letting this movie down. I mean, I'm all for Halle Bailey having a terrific career after this, so I'm not rooting for this movie's failure because I want her to be derailed. She was the best part of this movie. I think it's mostly just like, if this really does turn up to be like a big financial failure, like we're kind of, some people are speculating, some people are just flat out saying, but if it does end up being that, I hope this sends the right message. Sometimes, Disney gets sent messages and then they interpret it like a completely different way. And it's like, no, God, you're making more frustrating choices, but I hope this, paints the picture of like, we're not, against remakes entirely, but just why are you making them this way? Why are you picking ones that people already kind of say are perfect if all you're going to do are make minute changes that don't really make, the story better. It kind of overcomplicates some things, and sometimes it's not even exactly what they're looking for as far as like an update. Whatever, we don't need to talk about this anymore. Let's move on to number 3, which is The Boogeyman, on a budget of $35 million. Not the best opening in the world, and I wonder, this one I do think the next weekend will be interesting to see how it holds over, because I'm not sure how well it will. It made $12 million this weekend, which on a worldwide total, that's $20 million, so they still have $50 million to make until they get to the doubling point of that $35 million budget. I mean, yeah, this is definitely on the lower end of like the Stephen King opening weekend, for the adaptations. It was fine. I saw that the cinema score was like B-. I'm not sure what the Rotten Tomatoes score is, honestly, but I mean, yeah, I saw this movie and it's like, for me, it's Babadook Light, which is like, it's good, but I've seen it done a lot of other times before, but especially way more well done with something like The Babadook. So I can recommend it to some people because, Rob Savage, the director, he does some cool stuff with it. And I'm sure that's some of the talk as well. If some people are convinced to go see it, it's like, it's a, well-made horror movie enough, but it is also still a horror movie that suffers from some of the other horror movie tropes, or is it really tropes, or is it just like horror movie mistakes that some people make where they're like, well, we assume this is what, these stories are all about. This is what we should include to get people on someone's side. This is how we need to portray some people. And it's like, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's that's the strongest viewpoint as far as getting people to talk about it more or get people more engaged. So this kind of opening, especially, it's competing against Spider-Man and the Little Mermaid's leftovers. So yeah, I understand why it's opening a little low, but I am wondering if, I wonder if it's going to be one of those things where it opens low, but then next weekend it barely drops because people are like, okay, I've got that out of the way, but now I'm going to go see this, make some time for this, and it makes up for the other number. But, Transformers is also out next weekend. So I don't know, man. This might be dead on arrival. I'm not sure, but it was solid. If you want to go see it, go ahead. But I wouldn't say it's anything to rush out for. That would be Spider-Verse or our number 4, which is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, making $10 million, adding to a domestic total of $322 million. It has $11 million to go until it outgrosses Volume 1 domestically and $67 million to go until it outgrosses Volume 2. It has already outgrossed Iron Man 2 by $10 million in the domestic MCU charts, as well as the first Iron Man by $4 million, and Thor Ragnarok by $7 million. It is now behind Spider-Man Homecoming by $12 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at $780 million, and for the MCU rankings there, it has outgrossed Thor Love and Thunder by $20 million and now needs $70 million until it outgrosses Ragnarok. But, excitingly enough, although it still needs $89 million until it outgrosses Volume 2, it has outgrossed Volume 1 worldwide by $10 million. So the fact that it needs $89 million until Volume 2, the fact that it's already outgrossed Volume 1, it's like, well, yeah, the chances of it outgrossing the second one worldwide, that's looking even bigger. If this movie can have enough legs to get us over the finish line worldwide and domestically to be the highest grossing Guardians film, that would be incredible. And I'll just, for the MCU chart, I'd love to see it continue to climb there as well, but for the Guardians films, it would just mean so much to show, like, it wasn't diminishing returns each time. The audience was always there. The audience is always there to support the James Gunn vision, the Guardians of the Galaxy team up, the way these characters are written and portrayed. I would just really love to see that happen, and the fact that it's already outgrossed the first movie worldwide, that's just so special, and I really love that. Number 5, Fast X, continuing to drop, not holding over well, but it, makes $9 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $128 million. Domestically, it has outgrossed Too Fast, Too Furious by $1 million. Finally, shit. You'd think that would be easier to do. And it needs $16 million until it outgrosses the original film now. So there you go. It's the 10th installment and it's the biggest budgeted one, but it's having trouble now. It opens strong-ish, but then it has trouble holding over and, outgrossing the other entries, which should be easier to outgross. Worldwide, it is sitting at $603 million, so it's slowly creeping up to Fast 5. It needs $26 million until it outgrosses that, but I mean, shit, we're almost to the doubling point of the $340 million budget. You technically need $77 million until you get there now. But as I always say with these big tentpole movies, usually they need a little bit more than just the doubling point of their already big budget. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say that this is definitely a really big disappointment. And if the rumors are true that they're trying to, if the trilogy they're talking about as far as closing this series out is doing another Dwayne Johnson Hobbs movie before Fast X Part 2, but still doing that, it's like, are you going to be making any money doing that? You're still probably going to be paying these big stars the same amount of salary, and that's already most of these budgets. So, like, what are we doing here anymore? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want this to end on a whimper. I don't want it, especially wouldn't want it to end abruptly without any part 2 at all, resolving anything. But it's like, exactly what I was fearing the whole time when reports were coming in. This is how much the movie costs. Actually, it's a little more. Actually, it's the biggest budgeted thing you're ever going to see. It's like, why is this, why are we doing it this way? And also, it's not like you can tell on the screen because, you know, most of this looks artificial, and it's not like a Mission Impossible or Top Gun or even Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, where the money you can clearly see on the screen, you know? Like, there's a lot of great blending of visual effects, but also practical effects. It broke a record for how much practical effects are on people, you know what I mean? The prosthetic work. Fast X doesn't have that. It just has these big stars with big demands and also these crazy stunts that most of the stunts people aren't doing, you know? The smaller stunts, maybe they'll do that, like Michelle Rodriguez's part where they flip the motorcycle around the fence. Like, they probably did that for real, but then there's so much about the movie where it's like everything is so digital and obviously fake. What's there to be excited about when people are yearning for that tangible aspect of films these days, at blockbusters, you know? God, I don't know what the plan is. You know, I would feel bad if this got canceled, you know, especially because this used to be like a big cash cow for Universal. But man, it's, I think, very clearly showing that this franchise has kind of outstayed its welcome. It clearly has its fans, but not enough to make up for these huge demands financially. Let's move on to number 6, a Universal franchise that is doing well. The Super Mario Bros. Movie, making $3 million, adding to a domestic total of $566 million for the domestic all-time list that is still behind Incredibles 2 by $42 million. Worldwide, it is now sitting at $1.3 billion, so it has outgrossed Frozen on the all-time worldwide list by $16 million, and now needs $8 million until it outgrosses Fallen Kingdom's number 18. Pretty incredible that a Chris Pratt movie is soon to outgross another Chris Pratt movie on the all-time worldwide chart. That's just super cool. I have nothing else to add to this because this movie's been out a while and it's still making money, which is great, but I have nothing else to contribute here, you know. Fast X has more to talk about, you know. Little Mermaid has more to talk about. Across the Spider-Verse does. This has been out too long, you know, but congrats nonetheless. All right, number 7, About My Father. These bottom 4 are literally, I'm pretty sure they're literally like every release from last weekend. So let's go through it. Number 7 was About My Father, making $2 million, adding to a domestic total of $8 million. I still don't have a worldwide total for this, but they're still nowhere near doubling that $29 million budget. So womp womp. Number 8 is The Machine, a similar film with a stand-up comedian trying to act, you know, acting opposite a screen legend who is portraying their father. This is also still flopping though. It made $1 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $8 million, exactly just like About My Father. But it's, you know, it's still nowhere close to doubling its $20 million budget. It is still also behind the director's previous film, Keanu, by $12 million, so still not making any headway there. Number 9 is You Hurt My Feelings, making $769,000. No more millions, just the thousands, adding to a domestic total of $3 million. There's still no production budget for this, so I don't know how it's doing, but it's, you know, it still needs $14 million until it outgrosses, enough said, the director's previous film. And then finally, number 10, Kandahar, making $765,000, adding to a domestic total of $4 million on a budget of, I don't know, similar to You Hurt My Feelings, but it is still behind the director's previous film, Snitch, by $38 million, so doesn't even matter any way you look at it. I'm sorry I, speed ran right through those last 4, but it's like, I have nothing else to contribute. I kind of already said everything I wanted to last weekend, and it's just kind of funny how they're all in similar financial boats, you know, nowhere close to doubling their budgets. You know, they can't outgross previous films in the director's filmography, and they're just, you know, $2 million and below. That's it, you know? And they're all lumped together, similar to last weekend, how they were all lumped together, which is just very funny. Anyways, now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's Top 5. Now, I know that Transformers Rise of the Beasts is pretty much the only wide release next weekend. You know, as far as I could tell, there wasn't anything else that could potentially pop up. And obviously, that's subject to change just by the nature of everything. But I'm considering, since Across the Spider-Verse opened really big, and I'm assuming it's going to have a crazy good hold, and as much as I saw a previous report saying Transformers Rise of the Beast is estimated to open with 60 to 70 million, I don't know how accurate that is. I know The Last Night opened around there, but maybe over that holiday weekend, maybe it was 40 million, but Bumblebee opened a little lower, and it's been a couple years since Bumblebee, and there's more fans of that one, and some people are anticipating this a little bit more, just because of, you know, the Beast Wars elements that are being included in general, switching up the director again. But if I'm going to be for real, I think number one will be Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse because of the word of mouth, because of the holdover. And then number two, I think will be Transformers Rise of the Beast. I don't know how much it'll make. I don't know if this will be a complete flop, but I don't think it will open as big as some of these estimates are saying. I think Across the Spider-Verse can even potentially, hold on higher above what the estimates are for Rise of the Beast. So there's that for me. Number three, I think will be The Little Mermaid. Number four, The Boogeyman. And number five, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.